Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Command Beacon. Today we're going to try something very new to me. A challenge inspired by a good friend of mine. Now last night we were talking about Commander 2016 and the idea came out that we should make some decks on the fly with completely random general combinations. And so today this is what we're going to do. So what I have here for you is a list of all the current 2016 Commander decks, aside from the 4-color Commanders. Okay, and this challenge that I'm going to be doing is going to be building a 50-card Commander deck on the fly with a randomly selected commander. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, allow me to explain. So, in front of me here, there are two dice, the blue and the yellow. Now, the selection we'll be making is going to be based off of the spoiler order, the listed order on mythicspoiler.com. So the first dice I'm going to roll here, the blue one, is going to determine which row we're selecting the general from. In this case, if it rolls 4 to 6, then 4 to 6 is essentially going to be 1 to 3 again. Now, once we lock down the row that we're picking generals from, we're going to use the yellow dice and figure out exactly which general we're building the 50 cards around. The reason why it's 50 cards is, well, you naturally want to partner it up with another general at some point. So I want to kind of just build this half of a EDH deck on the fly, try as hard as I can to make it as focused as I can, as budget and as fun as I possibly can, and then in the future, when I make another one of these, maybe we can try and combine the two decks together. So that is going to be the challenge. And let's go ahead and get into it. The first dice, let's see which row we're going to get our commander from. 5. So 5 is the second row. So our choices are pretty exciting, actually. All right, let's see what it locks into. Oh, by the way, if we roll a 6, then the result is void and we have to reroll. Alright, a 4. Oh, it's Ludovic! Oh, this is very good. Excuse the sound there, that was just me recording the dice roll so that we can sync it later for this video. Let me go ahead and bring up this commander on the fly. Alright, this is actually a very cool commander. Ludovic Necro Alchemist. 3 mana, 1/4, 1 a blue and a red legendary human wizard. At the beginning of each player's end step, that player may draw a card if a player other than you lost life this turn, with partner ability. The flavor text is, how does one become a self-taught genius? Naturally, it requires brains. That's a pretty good flavor text. I am actually quite a big fan of this legendary. Part of the reason is because it's totally tiny leader viable, which, hey, if you think about it, we're making a 50 card deck, right? So that kind of goes directly into a tiny leader. But also, the ability is quite good. It works with a lot of really cool Izzet color control-ish deck cards, so to speak. So let's go ahead and get started. How would I build Ludovic, Necro Alchemist 50-card commander deck? Let's see. We are starting at the land base. Okay, so if we're keeping this deck budget friendly, we're going to be running, we're in blue and we're in red, so it's not exactly the most ramp heavy decks. We'll be borrowing the power of certain mana rocks. However, we are running, let's see, I think 18 lands should be more than sufficient. Between 18 to 20 land. So let's go ahead and do let's do 8 island and 8 mountain. Yeah, so that put us at 16. And if we're doing budget friendly, we're doing Evolving Wild and what is the other one? The other Evolving Wild, the two of them. And for our duel, we are using, let's see, we're using the Pinland, the Reef, the Shivan Reef for our version. Now, when you upgrade, you naturally want to grab at least 3 or 4 fetch lands with shock and possibly a duel if you can afford it. But for the budget version, I think 8 island, 8 mountain, Evolving Wild, the other Evolving Wild. It's so early in the morning, guys. Excuse me for not being able to remember the name of it. And then the Shivan Reef should do quite okay. Now, Ludovic Necro Alchemist allows you to draw a card at the end step if another player other than you have lost life this turn. What does that bring us to? A passive way to constantly deal damage. Note that it doesn't say it doesn't say combat damage, it doesn't say regular damage. As long as they lost life, you can draw the card. So is it colored pink deck is kind of good. So we can run all different kinds of like painters from the past. I believe there's a 3-mana 2/2 Merfolk that tap deal 1 damage to target player. There are multiple red painters. There are so many of them actually at a cheap price. And there is also the Prodigital Sorcerer and like 3 other older painters, 3 or 2 other older painters that exist at common, uncommon level that does a really, really good job at making this happen and allow you to draw more cards. So you're essentially now living the control life. If you can manage to sustain the livelihood, you can sustain the board with at least 1 painter a turn, you can constantly ping them, then you will be able to alt card advantage them and get them down, very efficient and very aggressive manner almost, because the pain really adds up, right? So if you do 2 damage this turn and then you play another painter, gives that haste, do 3 damage next turn, that's 5 damage. And chances are the painters have a big butt, so they can block fairly well also. And you are in Izzet, so the way to control your opponent is more. Then there are so many tools laying around. We have Electrolyze, we have Turn and Burn, we have Fire and Ice, not the sword, but the actual Fire and Ice. We have Lightning Bolt, Vapor Snag, which will also cause your opponent to just straight up lose life. And if you want to go a little bit more aggressive route, since you're in such a fun color combination, I highly recommend the Killing Fiend, Delver's Secret, right? These are very easy to find, very good stables for a tiny leader, or even in EDH if your deck is aggressive enough. And sometimes these kind of decks draw the least amount of hate because they're not necessarily combo heavy. They play turn by turn. They're playing very fair. You're trying to really do your best controlling the board, and when you are doing so very well, you're getting rewarded by the extra card draw. So these are the cards that I can think of off the top of my head right away. So we are looking at maybe 8 creatures, including the Fiend and Delver. Also add Young Pyromancer as well. My favorite red 2-drop, by the way, to gain more value. And then we're looking at probably 10 to 12 instant sorceries on the principle of bouncing, counter, burn. right? I mean, there are so many good ones out there. You can close out a game in Tiny Leader if you are running Fireball, Banefire, that kind of spell. You can run Epic Experiment if your deck have that heavy of a spell count. You can even try and force Storm to happen in those colors. Not necessarily viable in Tiny Leader, but in EDH that will be quite a lot of fun as well. And on the other hand, if you want to really juice up this deck, you are in a great position to do so, because Ludovic just happened to be a human wizard, and you can truly take advantage of that creature combination, the type. For example, we can run Cavern of Soul. Naming either human or wizard will work. You can run Snapcaster Mage. You can run the new Torrential Gearhulk. Not the combustible, I don't quite recommend that. But the Torrential is quite good, since it's just Snapcaster number 2 for the most ideal pieces. If you want to ramp it further, you can run stuff like Spellskite. You can do Teferi, the Planeswalker, and the creature alike. They're both excellent magic cards. And in addition, you can run Dack Fayden and the 2-mana Jace. So that will fill your slot up in a very efficient way. Now, of course, those cards are much more expensive to start off with. So to begin, I recommend the efficient removal spells, the efficient counter and burn, and then the cheap evasive creature that can be very easily pumped up by playing instant or sorcery or doing other kind of things. And there are quite a few of them. The Juggernaut, back from the original Ravnica, and you have the Cyclops from the new Ravnica. They all get buffs every time you play instant sorcery, and naturally you will be able to deal lots of damage and draw more cards in the process. Now, of course, I'm speaking so with the mindset of a 1v1 kind of Tiny Leader. However, if you're running Ludovic in a deck that usually plays against multiple players, then it is actually even better, right? Because you are not, well, I guess it's not necessarily always better, because it's at the beginning of each player's end step. But 1v1 certainly you can take full advantage of it. But let's step aside from 1v1 for one moment. Up till this point, all the cards I recommended are pretty much 1v1 material. Cards that really help you control the board, cards that really help you net that additional advantage, the tempo, at practically no cost. Now, if you're doing a multiplayer commander with Ludovic, what are some of the cards that you would want? Well, naturally, you would want Rhystic Study. You want to draw even more cards. That's half the fun. For at least me, drawing cards is a huge deal. You want to run the big epic spells that either gain control of all your opponent's creatures for the turn. You want to do maybe kind of bring over some of the Nekruzar enchantment overs to make everybody draw even more cards. And keep in mind that when you're bringing cards over from other potential combinations, you're opening up your deck for more possibilities, right? We're building the 50-card deck right now according to the abilities of Ludovic, how to truly take advantage of this commander. But at the same time, stay open-minded for the other half, right? You want to be in a spot in which your 50-card deck works very well on itself. And then when you combine them, you can find that happy medium. Take out the cards that swing too far left or too far right, and then replace them with cards that will stitch the two commanders together in a very nice fashion. So at this point, once again, the budget 1v1 Ludovic version, the 50-card deck, is going to look something like we already established the land base. We're establishing the painters, right? The cheap painters and the cheap spell buff dudes like Killing Fiend, Conda Delver for 1, right? You can even, if you have the budget for it, it's not too expensive. You can run you might even have one laying around, to be honest. The Thing in the Ice, because you are playing the control color fairly well. You can run the red-blue land that turn into elemental from the Shadows block, I believe, as well. Oh, sorry, not the Shadows block, from the new Battle for Zendikar block. So there are all these fun little control cards for you to really take advantage of at not really a high cost. In addition, you can run the Rux to help you smooth out your turn-by-turn plays, kind of getting you a little bit of an edge, setting you a little bit further than your opponent. What other rocks I would recommend? In Tiny Leader, Soul Ring is not available, but in Commander, of course, the Soul Ring is going to be there, the Mana Vault is going to be there, but the Izzet Signet is certainly not a bad card. Correlation Relic is certainly not a bad card. And if we're setting up Ludovic for a Ultimate Commander deck, then go ahead and add in Gilded Lotus. Thrine Dynamo is not a bad card. The 4-mana artifact that add 2 colorless mana, and then if you want, you can pay 2 and sacrifice it. Oh man, I can't think of this card name right now, and it's bothering me. It's a newer card, but it's very, very, very good. So I certainly recommend that as well. Now, most of the cards I recommend so far are pretty much at a common level, apart from the land, a couple lands, Thing in the Ice. I think that's about it, honestly. And that's your 50 card deck. It's very easy to put together, and I highly recommend to try to build a Ludovic Tiny Leader, because Izzet Tiny Leader is like nothing else. This color combination in Tiny Leader is so much fun to play. If you have spare cards laying around for control, or if you are the aggressive type of players, this color combination can very easily satisfy all of your crave. So yeah, I highly recommend building Ludovic. That is my quick, on the spot, no script build of the 50 card portion of Ludovic. Now, once again, let me just go through all the choices for Tiny Leader and then for the Commander. So for Tiny Leader, you want to focus on that kind of 1v1 play style. You want to gain tempo. So run the basic rocks, run all your lightning bolts, all your spell, all your vapor snag. Be efficient, draw lots of cards, and you don't have to necessarily always have a card engine. You just need to have Ludovic and protect it. And that's a very easy thing to do when you're playing these colors. Now, if you're expanding this deck into half of an EDH deck, then go ahead and bring in the bigger rocks, right, to mana ramp you. Bring in the more epic spells, like Epic Experiment, right? Thing in the Ice is very good in EDH as well. Very easy to do. Bring in for if you got the budget for it, bring in Cryptic Command, right? Bring in all the Windfall effects, easy peasy. And keep in mind that you might be pairing this up with a Black Splash General, so really take advantage of that discard engine, draw card engine. Keep in mind that you might be pairing this up with a green commander, then have the ability to determine what you want from green. Is it the creature portion, or is it their ramp portion? Now, if you are using the ramp portion, then you can base your deck around even more creatures or cards that take advantage of playing instant sorcery. If you're playing the creature version, then you want to think, how do I protect them? How do I meaningfully gain more control or more tempo by using them? Now, if you're pairing this up with a white splash commander, chances are you will have even more control in how the games are playing out. When that comes to mind, you can easily add in some devastating spells like all sorts of Wrath effect. I highly recommend Terminus. It's a cheap pickup. It's a very, very good pickup. Will take care of lots of resilient threats from the board in multiplayers or single players alike. You will be able to pick up all of the Jeskai control combination, and if your deck is spell heavy enough, then Jeskai Ascendancy is definitely a great pickup. You can half combo your way into the end game where you're producing massive amount of tokens off of Storm and just kind of swamp the board and kind of defeat everybody in the same go. But that's it. That's the 50 card Ludovic Necro Alchemist build on the fly. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next one to come. And also there is another video coming out soon with my friend Danny. We'll be going over some of the other commanders in this fashion. We're gonna try and put our brains together and build a deck on the fly. So think of this as like a practice for myself and a preview for what's yet to come. In the meantime, stay healthy and have a good day.